Welcome to episode 754 of Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all the links for the podcast, including social media and ways to listen and ways to support the show, over at the podcast page, the website actually. I'm so used to saying podcast page still. I need to get used to saying website. And that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. Also, please check out all the links in the episode description, including those for Jen, the Arcane Observer, and her channel, and Michael Strange and Trouble Minds Radio, both the show and the network, the online radio network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows 24/7. So I think that takes care of everything. Let's get to these true stories. Thank you all for being here. For those that can make it, I know that everyone can't be here all the time, so I appreciate whenever anyone is able to make it at all. So, and get to the file here, and we'll go from there. This first one says, I was 13 or 14 years old when this happened, in the basement of my childhood home. The basement was fully furnished with a TV, couch, pool table, Murphy bed, and other amenities, making it a popular spot for my siblings and friends and I to hang out. And just in case anyone hasn't heard of Murphy bed, I hadn't for a long time. Apparently that's a bed that it's built into a wall where you pull the wall down and there's a bed built into the wall. So I had no idea until I had friends that talked about it years ago. And so going on with the story here, says a friend and I were having a sleepover and fell asleep watching a movie on DVD. I woke up to find the TV selection screen glowing in the dark, with a repetitive sound clip playing at a slightly loud volume. The door to a tall, skinny closet to the left of the TV was slightly ajar. I wasn't sure if I was awake or asleep until I saw a tall, skinny black shadow obstructing part of the TV screen. The shadow seemed to notice me looking at it, and it quickly moved into the closet, with the door closing shut behind it. I was frozen with fear and unable to move or speak, hoping it was just a dream. My friend suddenly sat up and asked if I had seen the shadow, and we both quickly ran up the stairs. The next morning, we told my parents about the incident, but they didn't believe us. When I told my siblings about it, they shrugged it off, saying that weird stuff only happened down in the basement. And that's where that one ends. It makes me wonder, of course, what the siblings experienced down there. If they're saying that, like they're not surprised, then who knows what's going on there. Yeah, there we go. Sweets has a good image there of the bed. But anyway, makes me wonder what the siblings had to happen down there that they didn't really want to talk about. If they did have anything happen down there, if it was just feelings. But then you have the closet or this cupboard or whatever you want to call it. The shadow going into that is really wild. I've heard of course, shadows and other apparitions and just paranormal things in general happening in and around closets. I haven't heard a ton about that happening with cabinets so much. Although I've heard a few, but that is really amazing, and I'm guessing that the cabinet was still closed when they probably got down there next time. So, um, but yeah, it's really, and then to have the verification from the writer's friend there, so they know it wasn't just them, and they know they weren't just asleep when it happened, even though that time they didn't know. That is at least good to have confirmation. And sometimes I wonder too if as I always say, if it's always a case where whoever or whatever people see is really there to look on in on them, or if they're just going about their own business in their own version of reality, whatever that looks like. Um, and they are just as surprised to notice people as people are to notice them. Uh, you notice that the writer there didn't say they got any kind of negative feelings from it, from the shadow. I mean, they definitely were startled, and then frightened, which is understandable. But but I always wonder with that how often, and it's impossible to know, but what the percentage is or would be of cases where whatever people see doesn't really mean to interact with them at all, and so it has no intention to be there at all or to be noticed at all anyway. So, um, as in, like, what if to them, the people that write in these experiences to websites and things, what if they're the paranormal apparition to what we think of as the unknown, anomalous paranormal apparition, whatever it may be? Just something I've always been curious about, how often that happens, especially in those kinds of cases where it doesn't go towards the people, it doesn't seem to want to deal with them or do anything to them. Um, Always makes me wonder about that. So, moving on to the next one here. Let's see. Okay, there we go. It all fits. That's good. Uh, this one says, I am not a believer in the supernatural, but I don't know what to make of this experience. I was on a hike. There we go. That makes more sense. I was on a hike with my dog in Northern Ireland. The dog, which is not typically prone to stopping on hikes, suddenly stopped and looked to its right into a small forest. Before I saw the creature, I heard a strange sound, like a wolf howl, but deeper and possibly similar to uh, a bear's sound. I guess, I mean, maybe a bear's roar. Despite the fact that there are no wolves or bears here, I saw a creature that was approximately 8 to 10 feet tall, with a possibly black or brown color. The creature was able to walk on all fours, but also walked upright like a human. I only got a glimpse of the creature for about 2 seconds before it disappeared behind a tree. I was shaken by the experience and had to put a leash on my dog to get it to continue walking. Can anyone explain what I saw? And that's where that one ends. I haven't done a lot of research into creatures or cryptids, whatever you want to call them, in that part of the world, but it does sound like they saw some kind of I don't know if it'd be what you consider to be like a werewolf or a what's called a dog man. Doesn't sound exactly like a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot. But I mean, they didn't say. I don't know. It's really hard to make out just on those details. But But yeah, it sounds like they did see some kind of a creature there, and there was the dog noticed it first, and then the writer, and so yeah, I don't know. That's really amazing. The Of course there are werewolves and or dogmen seen uh, all around the world, but like I said, I'd never heard of this happening in Ireland. Not to say that again, that's just because I haven't done a ton of research about that part of the world. So yeah, and I see it in chat there, Joey. It was in I think it was Northern Ireland. Let me check on that again. I know it was Ireland. Let me find the beginning of the thing I was on there, and let's see here. Having a hard time finding it, which is funny because it's not that big. But yeah, it was definitely in Ireland, and uh, okay, Northern Ireland. Yep, I was right. Okay, so yeah, that's where it took place. Uh, but and again, I don't ever include. It didn't really say either, but I don't ever include specific small town names or things like that. So, but I also didn't. The original post didn't mention any either. So, but still, that's a general area. Just that part of that country. Um, and yeah, that's an amazing experience. I'm glad that this whatever this was didn't go towards the people, the other person, and their dog. That's a good thing. Um, and the roar also is always fascinating when it's described as being something like this, but also something like that. Um, so I do believe there's stuff out there, and I don't know what it is, but there's just too many reports of that kind of stuff just all around the world. So moving on to the next one here. And thank you all for being here and listening in, of course, as I always say, and for posting in the chat there. And I always try to get to as many comments as I can. So let's see here. Okay. This one is a little bit longer. This one says, my neighbor friend, T, and I would often take a shortcut between an abandoned theater and a mall to get to our other friend's house, which was about a 20-minute walk away. One night, after playing video games at our friend's house until 11 p.m., we decided to walk back home. As we approached the old theater, which was vandalized and had broken glass everywhere, we noticed a tall shadow figure rise up out of a dry creek bed we usually jumped over along the way. The figure was at least 7 to 8 feet tall, but that means it was taller, as it was in the bottom of this dry lake bed. I'm just over 6 feet tall myself. T took one glance and ran away, leaving me to follow. The figure slowly walked away, facing the left. T and I went back to our friend's house and called T's mom, who was also a pastor. That's as in religious figure, to come pick us up. I lived with our grandparents at the time and told them about the encounter, but my grandfather dismissed it as an old drunk person. 2 weeks later, my father called to say that my grandfather had seen the same figure on his way home from work, and that he had eyes the size of saucers, and said that he realized I wasn't lying. And I guess that means the grandfather's eyes were wide. My grandfather's account was similar to mine, except that he described the figure as being all white whereas T and I saw it as pitch black. T and I were close enough to the figure to be certain of what we saw, and we were shocked that my grandfather had also seen something similar as well. And that's where that one ends. That always amazes me because is it the same thing? And people are just perceiving it in different ways because of their own perceptions or their own, I don't know, their own energy interacting with its own energy to make it look different. Or is it, again, so is it two different things or not? I really wonder about that because it's just amazing when you have this this difference in appearance, but yet same location, and 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 then, but then again, it was. But I've heard of that before too, and I've even heard of other cases where all the people in the same encounter saw different things. Yeah, Joey in the chat says maybe it was the wee folks in that last story playing tricky tricks to steer the people from their home or what they guard over, and that could be. It could also explain why it appeared different because I've heard that as well. That the little folk or any number of names that they go by, they have that ability. So it could be. And yeah, that's if it was 8 feet tall, 7 to 8 feet tall, just from what the people could see of it. I'm wondering how far down that lake bed was. If that was like another foot down or something like that. I don't know. But it does sound like, I mean, that's a dry lake bed. That's nature. That was that they were near along part of their route. That they usually traveled. So I wonder if I wonder how long people use that path, and if there was an increase in travel along that way, and there was someone there, some other being there that didn't care for that and was trying to sort of keep people away, or was just not expecting this and would appear because they were trying to figure out why there were more people showing up. I think both could be possibilities there. So, but yeah, that was a neat one, I thought. It's always amazing when there's either multiple things seen in one location or the same thing seen in multiple different ways. Different ways. Words are hard. So, anyway. So yeah, I like that one. Let me see here. Looking at the chat here, says Joey says maybe beings that can grant illusions when casting those that are based in fear only cast a vibration that touches us and taps our fear, and the illusion is whatever our fear manifests. Yeah, could be. I do think there's always an interaction on a consciousness and energetic level with whatever we encounter out there, people encounter out there, that could cause there to be differences in the experiences that we have. So let's get at least one more done here for this episode. This one says, this happened about 5 years ago when I was in college and living in a 4-person dormitory. It was a summer evening, and I woke up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason. I checked my phone and found it was around 4 a.m. But I don't remember the exact time. Despite not feeling sleepy, I lay there and tried to sleep. But I was suddenly awoken by the sound of footsteps in our room. The footsteps sounded like someone walking barefoot on the floor, and I was too afraid to look down from my bed, which was situated above a desk. The footsteps seemed to be walking around the room, and my roommates were also awakened by the noise. After the footsteps stopped, the room was silent, and we didn't speak for a while. One of my roommates eventually broke the silence by saying they didn't want to scare anyone, but they had also heard someone walking around the room. My friend and my roommates and I, realized we had all woken up and heard the footsteps at the same time. Another roommate reported feeling someone touch their feet. This may not seem too frightening to some, but it was really scary to me at the time. And that's where that one ends. I'd really be curious about the history of the dormitory there. Of course, we don't have that information, which is understandable, and no one should ever have to share what they don't want to share on websites and things like that. But it sounds like they ruled out it being a regular person. There was no sound of any doors opening or closing for the person to get in or get out. So I wonder, I have no idea what that was, except it sounds like there was footsteps and then some kind of a physical contact with one of the other roommates at the time. And so I don't know what that was, but there's a lot of accounts I've found over the years of colleges and schools having paranormal activity in their living areas. And I do wonder if that's because those are sort of like, they're similar to hotels in a way, long-term hotels or apartments, where over time you have a lot of people that have come and gone through these spaces in some locations. And that can lead to a lot of energy being still there. Who knows the history of the area, if anyone passed away in the area, to where maybe them or some part of them, some residual energy of them would still be around. Although the touching of the one roommate's foot or feet would, to me, suggest not so residual, at least not in that case. But could be that the footsteps were residual, but then the touch was not. It's always hard to know exactly what is happening at any given point in an experience, I think. So, but yeah, that's I've talked about before how I've been to I went to this training center for people with low vision or no vision, and to learn various skills on so people can live more independently, even though they may have low vision or no vision at all. And like I've said before, I've done whole shows on my experiences there, and I was not the only one there to have experiences. So, yeah, that seems like, to me, you have these kinds of places where there's people that are staying and coming and going, and just coming and staying for a while and then going, and that can lead to different things happening. So, but that is all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for being here, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.